This is Getting Real with Howard and Paul.
Yeah, and you want it to be getting real, right? Like in real, like real estate.
Yeah. Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 1 of Getting Real with Paul and Howard. And I'm Howard Chung with John Scott Real Estate, and this is
Paul Balzotti. I'm also with John Scott Real Estate.
And he's the owner of the Bellingham office. Yeah. And I've been in ownership before, and now you and I are in co-ownership in part, of the John Scott Anacortes office. That's where we are today. Lovely. The sun is out. It's gorgeous in the rain shadow that I've recently learned about that we have over here. But we want to talk about all things real estate for realtors, and that's why it's called Getting Real. And we literally just came up with that 5 minutes ago, so it might change. But that being said, when we say getting real, you were talking about honesty. So let's just start with that, Paul. What do you mean about, like, sometimes real estate professionals, realtors, we got to be a little bit honest, right, with ourselves. What was the conversation that we're having?
Well, we were talking about, so everyone's projecting that in 2023 that sales are going to be down. Yeah. And so then what goes through your mind? Well, the first thing that'll go through your mind is, okay, I did this much last year. Yeah. And I put this much time into it, so I got to prepare to do less next year. Well, obviously you can do things differently. You can improve on your systems and all that, and that's something that we want to help people with, and help brokers with. But it starts with, what are you doing with your time? Honestly, getting real about it. Yeah. And I was talking about just how many even hours per week somebody's working. Yeah. And I know this is an exercise that you've probably heard of many, many times before, is like work out what you are valued per hour, right? And I would say the thing is, that is one exercise that you could do, but the reality is, just counting your actual work hours, that's one thing, but then the actual business development, the actual connecting with people, those are hours we often neglect to count at all. So, you can be out touring, you can be out previewing, showing properties, you can count those hours, but that's not necessarily going to lead to the next sale, the next referral, the next appointment. So it's really got to be about, like, how many hours are you counting in terms of the business development. But you know what? That's one of the obvious, I think, top 3 tips. If we're to say, if there's top 3 tips for getting ready in 2023 to thrive, to succeed in 2023, one of them is just about time management, which is what we're kind of talking about, right? Right. It's starting with that. They call it the power hour. Is there other terms that people use? There's a lot of terms for it, but it is that power hour, right? Yeah, so engagement hour, power hour, and I love power because we've used that actually as an acronym. Productivity, organization, wow factor, right? Everybody's got to have a wow factor, some energy, right? And then finally, like, the relationships. So, if you start to think about power as this acronym, it's just like, oh, how productive am I being? What's my organization systems? Do I have a wow factor? Do I stand out, differently? So we've definitely got to schedule that in to the point where it should be like one of those recurring events on our calendars. It actually shows up, it gives us a calendar reminder, and then we don't just ignore that. We actually have a plan around that hour, right? And so, Paul, you still sell real estate as well, right? So you're managing a lot of different things between family, selling real estate, managing an office, right, and then leadership. So, how do you go about your time? So when I do that, what I do is I schedule my day and I put an hour in for something like that. But to your point, I write in. And I like to do this. I'm a night owl, so I like to do it the night before. For some people, it might be better to do it first thing in the morning. But what I do is I actually email myself too. Yeah. So I'll schedule it in my schedule, but then I send myself an email or a task reminder in a program. But I will write out exactly who I want to call. Yeah. And they say, like, the big rocks and the small rocks. It's like, who are the people? So it's, and that can be different because you have client relationship management with your current clients, but then it's like prospects and follow up and all that too. So those are 2 different buckets, right? But I definitely will say, call John, email this person, text this person, call this person, and I'll put those things at the top of my list. And then that way, I'll put it in 2 different places, and then if I don't get to it, or I only get to part of it, then I'm going to put that on for the next day, so I don't lose track of doing that. But yeah, you got to actually think about the people you want to call too. You can't just be like, you're right, you can't just be like, I'm going to make some calls.
Yeah.
Because then you'll just sit there and be like, well, let's just look at Facebook.
So definitely the time management piece is one of the biggest things, and that's what you and I are actually starting to coach deeper in on. In fact, I'm doing a 7-week course, literally all revolved around things like getting things, like first things first, the Stephen Covey kind of strategy, the getting things done by David Allen. There's so many different approaches, and there's a lot of psychology to kind of these systems. So it's a combination of understanding ourselves, because a lot of times we'll be like, oh, I'm a procrastinator, oh, I feel so guilty for not doing or organizing my database, I'm not technical enough. So we have tons of excuses as far as why we don't do some of these things, and some of it is simply like, you know what, we just need to understand a few organization skills that you were never taught, or maybe you had some of those skills maybe from a previous job and stuff, but just in terms of that hour, that power hour. So that's tip number 1. Everybody must have a power hour or an engagement hour where you're just connecting, right? Every single day. Email yourself. Think about the specific people like we were talking about. But we're going to give you 2 more tips, right? So that's tip number 1 of 3. Paul, you had another tip that I really, really loved. So give us that insight.
Well, I basically I want you to, or this is what I would say, is audit your database, and obviously review your prospect pipeline. And it doesn't matter what program you use. There's tons of great ways to set up your prospect pipeline. But I'm going to look at my prospects and I'm going to look at my database. And this is the time of year that you have to look at those things and see where that lines up. Because from there, you can figure out what your activities are. If you have a great database already set up and you have a pipeline full of prospects, well, now you're going to start getting to work just on the flow of the work that you need to do with those clients, with those prospects, maybe scheduling out your flow with your database.
Yeah.
But if you have 30 people in your database and you have 2 emails and you have 2 people that are interested in buying this year, then you have a lot of work to do, right? So basically just looking at those things and then carving out a plan from there.
So I feel like we talk about this word database all the time. Right. And here is like one big tip along this line, because I'm in 100% agreement with you. One of the top 3 things should absolutely be organizing, right? First of all, just collecting everybody into a centralized database, and truly it could just be on your phone, which obviously is typically now synced to one of the cloud services, right? Whether it's the Google cloud, through Google Contacts, or of course which is even done through Gmail, by the way, if you didn't know that, or through your Outlook, or through your of course your Apple. I mean, everybody has a cloud-based system, so if you lose your phone, I mean, it's usually backed up at this point nowadays. But instead of just thinking about database, I want you to think about the base of the clients that you care about. Your base, right? So start there. But then you got to say, do I have data about them? That's a way to think about the word database, a base of clients that I've got data about. But I promise you this, you go to any one of the base people probably right now, if you pulled up your phone and said, oh, this is somebody I really care about, this is a favorite contact, but you don't have probably built into there, for the majority of them, things like their birthday, anniversary, kids' names, their mortgage interest rate, when they bought the house, the value of their home, even the home address you probably don't have in there. Those are all the data points. So it's just like, oh, that's right, I should know some of the data, and if I'm curious enough about the people and I care about them enough, then all of a sudden that database, it becomes alive. It becomes this living, breathing, I mean, just, it creates a whole new meaning behind that. And so that is definitely one encouragement that I suggest for everybody. It's not just an administrative organization system where you ask a staff person or administrator or assistant to organize that for you. I think you, as the main leader of your business, need to look at every single one of the people, right? Have a photo associated and be curious. I wonder how they're doing. I wonder where, what's the value of their house right now? I wonder if they're curious or nervous about if their house is depreciated, because a lot of people think their house is depreciated in the last year just because they see all these statistics and stuff. And so that might be the case, it might not be the case, but we've got to connect with them at that level. So I think database is huge, but I've got one that I would recommend, Paul, that goes before the database.
Okay. What's that?
What is it? So in order for you to be motivated to even do this activity about the power hour, or I think, organizing a database or even having a database, a lot of times we've got to really think about the why. Our why. And the books Start With Why. You maybe have seen Simon Sinek's, TED Talk, and oh yeah, I know my why. Do you really know your why? So a lot of times we think that our goal is our why. I want to earn $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 this year. That's the why. That's a goal, and goals are great. We should have financial goals and all sorts of relational goals. You should have goals for sure. Written goals, of course, the SMART goals, all of that, 100% for. But the why is a little bit different, right? Chances are, like before you make an activity, like if you're looking at that client right now, man, my why is to really serve this client. I'm really curious and I want to care for them. So that's not a goal so much as it is like, that's really who I am. I want to make sure these people are taken care of. There's a lot of people who are nervous, again, about real estate and all the talk and just recession and all these kind of conversations. So we got to really start to think, is that my why? And when you start with why, okay, I will definitely state the book there, then all of a sudden it's just like, these are the reasons, right? This is the bigger driver for me, and I really do care about usually the people in my database, right? And then that triggers then gathering more information and actually making the call and during the power hour. So review your why, make it emotional. It should actually feel something, not just in your head, but also in your heart.
That's really good. I love that. And, just on the overall conversation, I wanted to just touch on the fact that another thing to get real about, right, is one of the things that we try to do as a company and as an office now that we're with Anacortes as well is right off the bat with the brokers that are here, we're offering resources and help. I know you said that, jumping back to the database thing, I know you mentioned, hey, you can't just use an administrator to just kind of put in their name and email. That's true. You do need, it's great to get the birthdays in and do all that, but it does help to get some help. And so, I think that what's great about what we're doing is we're offering resources to help brokers just get a little better organized, because a lot of times it's just a little bit of that extra help that gets people over the hump of actually just kind of getting it done. And then the other thing is then when you have the database, I think that a lot of companies and a lot of brokers don't really like the tools and the campaigns that they have, so they don't feel very motivated to have the database other than, okay, these are the people that I would mail something to, or I would, yes, I should call those people. But guess what? If you have great tools and then we're showing you how to use those tools, then it's like, hey, if you put these people in, here's a couple programs that are really valuable that you can plug them into and set it and forget it. And it doesn't mean you still don't need to do all your client relationship activities, but it does mean there's a reward at the end right away. Because when you put those people in your database, we have some great programs to help them actually get activity out of that. What's the term from that? I mean, basically housing updates, neighborhood campaigns, buy-side house value subscription, things like that.
We want to make it so easy for you to have conversations with the people that you care about, because all the systems are automatically in place, and those are things that we're doing. We're like doing things like cleaning up duplicates in all your various databases where you're like, I've got people in all sorts of databases here and there. Well, why don't we just go ahead and consolidate that for you? We know how to do that. So, we've got our support team members doing work exactly like that, recording their videos, editing on their behalf. I mean, that's the kind of thing that real estate firms, the modern real estate firms, right? That's what we got to do, and we're going to do that for you. That's what we're here for. That's why we're super excited for our brokers as well as the community that we really care for, and we want to just increase and grow, other like-minded folks.
Absolutely.
So everybody, if you're watching this, we really encourage you to reach out to us, get to know us a little bit. We have a very unique leadership and support mechanism because we are truly, we've got 5 different people, all with different skill sets, plus an entire suite of support team members, and we want to help you. And we say that all the time, take your business to the next level, but your systems, your lead generation processes, the entire thing to actually become A+, right? So not just next level, but truly top of class.